Hopefully some of you will get reconnected, but we'll just do take two on the go line. So this is the first episode of an idea that we're calling GlassHouse to Go. And GlassHouse, as maybe some of you know, is a ministry that is based out of Davidson, North Carolina. It is a ministry that's kind of the culmination of 20 years or so of us doing ministry certain ways. One of the ways that we love to do is just simple Bible studies. And I hold this up because I brought it with me. But it's kind of our forward phrases that keep us on the right track and vision of what God's done for us, which is simplicity, community, generosity, transparency. And the idea of those things is, again, just a very simple form of ministry. So often ministry can get very complex. You can lose sight of the main things and the important things. But I'm hoping that won't be the case with our life. And so GlassHouse to Go, the idea of it is that during the summer months, I'm a school teacher by trade, bivocational pastor of a small house church in Davidson. And so in the summer, we go and visit a lot of the people that we have met over the years and just reconnect with them. And I'm doing that right now. I'm actually broadcasting from hot and humid back porch of a Miami area house. This is the Oatmeyer's house, and I can't thank them enough, first of all, for letting me set up the studio here, but also this place is so special. These people are so special. And so it's only fitting that this would be one of our first GlassHouse to Go episodes. And so you may hear dogs bark, you may hear birds chirp, you may hear air conditioners go on and off, and that's all the stuff of everyday life. So that's part of my goal here. But we're going to get into a Bible study today. It's just a simple one, as the first word there you see, simplicity. So we try to keep it simple, but at the same time, try to have some form of profound nature to it as well, because that's how the Bible is. It's a simply profound book. And so I have titled today's thought. I'm going to text real fast and make sure that Christian Carrasco, who is another person, by the way, you're on our future list of stops. I want to make sure my mic's on, that I'm not just seriously just pantomiming this teaching, because it's great to have quiet in our lives. It's great to have moments of silence, but watching a person talk without being able to hear them talk is a little bit frustrating. So hoping again that we've remedied the mic problem, and we'll see if that's been changed. If it is, then I'm going to get the go-ahead from Christian Carrasco, who incidentally is just a tremendous friend and also an incredibly technical person. And if he just happened to be here now, or any of his sons who are also even more intelligent than he is because of the power of recessive genes and the influence of his wife, God's grace, all that to say that if they were here, they would fix all my technical problems too. But anyway, just to say again that I'm on the back porch of the Oatmeyer's house, and this is a place they allow me to stay. They have a room upstairs in their place, in their condo, and let me tell you, what gracious hosts. And just in this very simple way, that's again what this GlassHouse to Go is. It's kind of to invite you into the places we're invited into. We have had so many great friends over the years, so many great experiences, and the freedom that we have to travel and to see those people again this side of heaven is just such a great thing, because we did move out of the Miami area, but it's not the only place we've ministered and been. And so that's what GlassHouse to Go is. I will tell you more about it as we go. But again, I want to get into the Bible study. And so enough about that with the announcements and thoughts like that. So today's talk is called Life in the Last Lane. Life in the Last Lane. And some of you know my love for music, and maybe you know a popular hit out of the golden oldies, at least as they refer to 80s music for me, is an Eagles song. It's called Life in the Fast Lane. And was about everything all the time. It was about a person who was, trying to just drive for success and always wanting more and more and more and more. And that song was called Life in the Fast Lane. Anyone who drives knows what the fast lane's about. It's that I want to get there as quickly as I possibly can, and I'm blowing past people and all that. But I titled today's talk, today's teaching, today's segment of Scripture, Life in the Last Lane. And the reason I call it that is you may know Jesus had kind of a paradoxical way of approaching life, of saying things, and sometimes he required people to think things over and to think a little differently than they normally would. And so the last lane actually can be the fast lane. And what I mean by that is you can actually get further faster sometimes by putting yourself in the last position. And Jesus said it so many different ways, but one of the great times that he said it, he said, the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. And there's a tremendous parable wrapped around that, and it's found in several places, but it's actually found in Luke chapter 14. And Luke chapter 14, he tells a story, and let me grab it here real fast. And he tells this story because he went over to a fast lane Pharisee's house. And a Pharisee is just a person in Jesus's day who kind of had it all as far as the power, the position, the possessions, all of those things. I mean, in most cases, they were the really highly revered VIPs of their society and considered very spiritual as well. And so it was just, the person who kind of had the nice things of life. But they were legalists by and large. They were religious sometimes, but not very real. And so Jesus went to eat at the house, it says, of a prominent Pharisee. And he was being carefully watched. And that was something, I don't know if you've ever been carefully watched, but, you've been at somebody's house and you feel like if you use the wrong fork or you do the wrong thing in the wrong way, then it's going to be very poorly received. And this is Jesus. He felt like he was on eggshells, having to walk on eggshells and get everything right, in this place, or at least that's what they wanted. And so there's a place later on in the passage where it says, verse 7, this is Luke chapter 14, verse 7. But it says there that the guest picked the place of honor. There were other people at this Pharisee party, and there were people who said, like, I want the front row seat, right? I want the best seat. I want to live in the fast lane. I want to go for and grab the gusto and get what I need. And nice guys finish last and all that kind of thing. And so they lived that way. They would always go for and grab for whatever it was they wanted most. And again, that's a way to live. Certainly some people are going to get some nice things and nice seats that way. But Jesus watches this, and he told him a parable. And he said, when somebody invites you to a party, to a wedding feast, he says, don't take the place of honor. Don't go right to the reserved for the VIP section. Or go, well, that must be me. I'm VIP. I am the most important person in my life. I'm the most important person in everyone's life. I must be who they reserved this for. And he says, don't do that. Because what if the real VIP shows up and the guest all get to watch you be told by the host, you're not supposed to be here. This is not your seat. What are you doing sitting here in this nice seat? You should be in the back. You should be in the last place. And he says, man, if that happened, you would be humiliated. I mean, talk about the walk of shame. You'd be walking through that place, having thought you had a place of prominence. And instead, the person in charge says, you don't belong here in this nice spot. Now, again, that would be a very difficult thing to say and to see. But he says, what if instead you came into a place and you just took the last seat, the lowest seat, the worst seat, the place that's really, it doesn't matter where I sit. I'll sit wherever. And then what if your host says, what are you doing here? Sees you in the back row and says, wait, no, not back row for you. In fact, you should be here in the front. You should be in the reserve section. In fact, I want to take someone else out of that chair and put you in it. Now, again, that's a thing where all of a sudden someone else's humiliation is actually your honor. And so that parable that Jesus told, he said, all who exalt themselves will be humbled. And those who humble themselves will be exalted. Now, what was he saying there? He was saying that if you put yourself on a pedestal, God has nothing that he can do from that place other than take down a notch. He can adjust you and say, you know what, I think you're a little too puffed up of your own opinion, of your own place in this world. But what he was saying, paradoxically, is if you will humble yourself, you'll avoid humiliation. See, if a person exalts themselves, the only thing that can happen to them is humiliation when they are taken down from that spot. But if a person is in a lower spot, a last spot, a place of humility, a place of honesty, then the host can come in and say, no. What are you doing there? You really have a closer space, a better spot. I want you up here near to me because you reflect the heart that I have, which is that in this place, it's not the people who put themselves first who really reflect the heart of God. It's the people who are willing to be in last place, to look for the least, the last, and the lost, and say, you know what, I'll be among that. And if God wants to move me somewhere and have me do something more prominent, that's his business. Now, again, I think about that in this talk and these talks at GlassHouse to go. This is the first, hopefully, of many, a way of doing things that's maybe different. It might not appeal to everyone, but again, I'm in a pretty humble, but at the same time exalted place. And why do I say that? Well, again, it's just a simple back porch. When I came back here, I was like, this is perfect for our broadcast. This is the perfect spot. This is amazing. Just a simple little wicker couch here, and surrounding me, you can see some of them, some plants here. But you know what's amazing? Suzanne Oatmeyer. This is actually her place for doing devotionals. And I've seen her while I was here. She's just such a bubbly and peaceful person, very active and wonderful. And you know what? Surrounding her here are plants. And she actually showed me a little while back these plants, and she has names for all of them. And I thought, well, that's funny. You name your plants. And she said, well, actually, it's the names of the people who gave these plants to me. So if somebody gave her a little plant and it's sitting there, that's the name for that plant because it's actually a reminder for her of that person and their gift. And some of them, the person's already, on to eternity. There are some cases of that where she's like, well, that person is no longer here on the earth physically, but that plant is just such a reminder of the blessing that God gave me through their life. And again, as somebody's just showing me those things, I'm like, this place is absolutely perfect. She wanted to clean it up a little, do a little this and that. And I'm like, don't change a thing. Don't change a thing. It's exactly like it should be because back here is where so much ministry has taken place. The Oatmeyers support ministries, support missionaries, support them in every way that you could, emotionally, spiritually, physically, financially, whatever it might be. But they just have a heart for people. But you know what? It's not just some person who's doing huge things for God who sat back here and received ministry for them. Oftentimes it's just a simple person serving somewhere who doesn't even think of themselves as special. And yet you come into this house, and let me tell you, you are a VIP from the moment you hit the space. It's just such a special place to be. And I learned so much from them. I want to be more like them in their capacities, just in a humble way, not to exalt themselves, but what the Oatmeyers have done over the years is exalt others. They have poured into others. They have given and been generous with others. They've been transparent with others. They've been part of the greater community. I've served along with them at the same church. I've been at different church environments where they were here and we were there. But through it all, what I've seen is God has a way of exalting his people who've humbled themselves. And I think of all the ways that their life has been blessed, and my life's been blessed through theirs. So that's about just as recent as last night. I'll leave you with an illustration. Again, I hope you'll think through these passages. Again, Luke 14, where Jesus gave that parable and said, you know what, if you exalt yourself, the only option is humiliation. But if you humble yourself, you'd be amazed at what God can do to lift you to a better place, a higher spot, a more prominent thing. And that's life in the last lane, where you go, well, I'm in the last lane, I'll get there last. And Jesus said, oh, you'd be surprised how sometimes the last are first and the first are last. When you look at their entire life, when you look at the entire race that they run. And I'm holding here in my hand a ticket to an event that was last night. And this is so great how God does little illustrations or experiences in my life, and I know yours too, that teach you these things. And I actually was a chaperone for a couple of young ladies, my daughter and her friend, her childhood friend that they stayed connected with here in Miami. And so the two of them had a certain music artist who meant a lot to them growing up, still does. And so they wanted to go to this. And I actually gave that set of tickets to them as a birthday present for my daughter a year ago when this event was announced. But last night was the actual event. So I drove out there. There was a bit of a drive, but we drove out there, and they got up to their seats and everything else. And I didn't even have a ticket. And to know me is one of the things to know about me. My family will say it is concerts over the years. God has done amazing things to upgrade my seats. It's almost a family joke that Scott will somehow end up in the front row or in some prominent place of every show that he goes to, and you never know what the story's going to be. But this was the story from last night. So I showed up. I had no ticket, right? The girls went in on their ticket, and it was a nice seat and all the rest. But I was sitting outside, and I was planning, actually thinking on just going out to the car and getting some work done, sitting there through the show and all the rest, just waiting out in the car for them. But I walked back over, and most of the people had gone into the venue by this point, and there was a radio station there, and the radio station was giving away front row tickets. Now, I know some of you right away say, did you win that? And no, I didn't. I didn't win that. But in fact, my name wasn't even in the hat for it. And so there were people who were trying to get these front row tickets, but they also had some other tickets to give away that were just kind of run of the mill, not that great of seats, but they got you in the door. And so most people had a great ticket somewhere else. So they kept declining when somebody would win the bad seat. They're like, nah, I don't want it. I want to keep going for the front row seat. And eventually they gave the front row seat away and started packing everything in. So they were packing everything away, and this person had like a stack of these tickets that they frankly couldn't give away because nobody wanted them because they weren't that great. And so I went up to the person and said, hey, are those tickets available? I mean, are they're they're bad seats, but if you want one, yeah, you can take it. I said, sure, I'll take it. It's better than the seat I got out in the car. Maybe there's air conditioning or whatever. So I went up now and went to the little person who was beeping me in, and the thing went, and by this time the radio station people had left, but it went, gave me a bad thing. And I'm like, oh, great. I didn't even just get a bad ticket. I actually got one that doesn't work. And they said, no, go talk to Will Call. There's some message on it that there's something special with this ticket. So I went over to the Will Call booth, and they said, oh, yeah, actually, we set up an additional camera crew in that section. And so we're going to have to move you. And I said, oh, that's fine. It's a free ticket. It doesn't matter where I sit. Can't be worse than this. And they said, no, we'll upgrade you. We're going to put you in the VIP club. And I said, oh, okay, sure. Why not? They said, if that's okay. I mean, we're really sorry about your seat getting messed up and things like that by the camera crew. I said, no, it's perfectly fine. It's not really my seat. And so I got to enjoy the show, which was a very enjoyable show, from a very, very nice, comfy leather couch-like almost seat in the VIP section. And, after the concert, my daughter and her friend came out and they were bubbling on about it and very excited about the whole thing. But what was great is they said, go ahead, tell us your story. We know you have one. And I said, well, I do. I can just tell you that life in the last lane sometimes is better than life in the fast lane. That if God sees fit, sometimes you'll be sitting out in the car, with no air conditioning, missing the show, and that's okay too. But there's times in life where if you're just in the right place, it becomes a place of grace, and you take what you get, but you get more than you could have ever taken if you just took and took and took. And so again, if I could leave those phrases, those thoughts, Jesus's thoughts with us, it's that if you exalt yourself, there's really nowhere else to go from there but down. But if you will humble yourself, there's everywhere to go from there. If you're a person who says, I'll take the last seat, that's fine. Jesus may say, well, I actually have a better seat than that for you. I have a better place for you than that. What are you doing here? But the words I never want to hear from Jesus is that I put myself in some prominent place. And he says, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. Go to the back. And so when I think about what life in the last lane has meant for our family, it means truly we have experienced abundantly beyond all that we could have thought or imagined, just as Jesus promised. There were times, of course, where we got left outside the venue, and that's God's plan for that day. But when I'm willing, when you're willing, when we're willing to say, God, whatever you want from me is better than what I want from me. Well, I like the Syrophoenician woman. We just studied it, and then I'll close out this session of GlassHouse to go. When we were studying through Mark, and it came to that woman who was a Gentile woman, and she was there at a party she really didn't belong at, right? And they let her know that she didn't belong here. But Jesus even said some words to her that were a little challenging in the moment. If you don't understand the context, if you don't understand what Jesus was trying to accomplish in that moment, it won't make any sense at all. But he said to this woman, hey, it's not right for me to take from my kids and give to the dogs, And this woman in humility, she could have gotten very upset at that statement. But in humility and in faith, she said, yeah, but you know what? I'll take whatever crumbs you have. And Jesus said, this woman has just demonstrated what I'm talking about. That as she took the crumbs from the king's table, she ate better than the people who were complaining about the meal that they were given. Well, I was supposed to sit over here and mine didn't come out right and everything else. And so a place of humility is such a place of grace in our lives. And I encourage you, as those who taught me, and not just taught me in words, but taught me an example. They would walk into a room, and instead of thinking I'm the most important person here, they would treat every person as an important person here. And if there was a bad seat, an obstructed view, a less honorable place, well, they were happy to sit there. And if the host came and said, no, I actually have a spot for you over here, they were able to take that too. And so they were happy in either spot. They were content in either place. And so, again, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. And I encourage you, don't be afraid of life in the last lane. Thanks for joining.